serious action against him and his country. His country is what he has led his country into is a death trap.
Mr. President,
Please.
has the Secretary General presented his Ukraine peace plan to you? Are you prepared to be chairman of a board of peace?
There is no Secretary General peace plan. But I'm here for, I really want to correct that, because I saw some of that in the media. Of course, many people are thinking how to bring this terrible war to an end and supporting the President in doing that. Why I'm here is to dialogue again with the President how I can be, how NATO, my colleagues and other colleagues in NATO can be of maximum support to get that done. But there is no peace plan on the table. If there is a peace plan, it is what the President said last Friday and Sunday, which is stop where you are. Stop the fighting.
This is about NATO. We're a very proud member of NATO. We have a great relationship with the countries of NATO. I think made much better by our visit a few months ago when they agreed to 5% instead of 2% of GDP. That was a big concession. I think that was a concession that 2 years ago nobody would have said, even a year ago.
Even 9 months ago, before you were elected.
Yeah, they would have said that's not possible. Absolutely. And the difference is they're paying 5% as opposed to not paying 2%. A lot of them weren't paying, with the exception of Spain. I think you're going to have to talk to Spain because Spain is not a team player. So other than Spain, everybody's 100%. And you could solve the Spain problem very easily, I think, if you want. Brian, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll take Brian.
The soybean farmers, are they going to be getting support from you soon? And your
yeah, well, they do.
So
what's happened, you could say with that, you could say with beef, with all of it. The beef, the ranchers, let's say, who have done a great job, have lost their shirts for many, many years. They've really been decimated. And I helped them a lot. I put tariffs on things coming in to the country, including beef. And that gave them a chance to finally have a decent industry. We are going to be talking to them. They're great people, but they've been hurt for 25, 30 years. They've been losing because other countries have taken advantage of them. And by putting tariffs on, they've been able to make a few dollars. They've been able to have an industry. But I also want to keep the beef prices low. So I'll be talking with the ranchers, and I'll be speaking with a lot of different people, including Scott and Howard, and we'll do something. Because prices are way down in our country. Energy is way down. I think you're going to see $2 gasoline very soon. I see that it's $2.50 in a lot of places, $2.50. We were heading to $5, $6, and $7. If Biden didn't go back to my policy toward the end, you would have seen. But he didn't go back to the full policy. And he missed the most important thing. So we were up to, we were way up. I think you're going to see $2 gasoline. We couldn't even break that number. That's a big difference. The only cost that's really up is beef, and the fake news only wants to talk about beef. And what I did is I made it possible for those people to survive. They're incredible people, but they were being decimated by other countries, and I didn't want that to happen. So prices are way down. Groceries are down. Everything's down. Energy's way down. Even interest rates with a bad chairman of the Fed. He's terrible. He's a fool. But even interest rates are down. So our country has never done better. We're going to take in, I think, $21 trillion this year. No country has ever taken in more than $3. And we're going to take in $21 trillion of investments because of the tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be a mess. We would be a national security problem, and we've done a job. So I'm very happy about that. We're going to do something very quickly and easily on beef to get it down. The ranchers understand that. They're so happy for what I've done. I saved them. I don't think you'd have any beef in this country if I didn't do that. So we're very proud of that. Yeah, Brian.
Yes, sir. Yesterday in Los Angeles, immigration officials were attacked by some protesters in an attempt to arrest an illegal alien. Gavin Newsom, other Democrats have used very aggressive language in terms of how to address ICE agents out in the field. Is there any responsibility that we can place on Gavin Newsom and other elected officials for using such aggressive language?
Well, Gavin has to be careful. Remember that when I first came in, they had a terrible riot in Los Angeles. They had the fires, which shouldn't have happened. They didn't have the water for the fires. They should have had the water coming in from the Pacific Northwest. They didn't have the waters. They didn't have water in the hydrants or the sprinklers. So they had the fires, and then they had the riot. And if we didn't go and take care of that riot, you would have lost Los Angeles. You would have canceled the Olympics, which is because of me in Los Angeles. And the police commissioner, the head of the police, said, if the president didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles. We did not have the capability of taking care of it. And he said it very strongly. And we did a great job. And within a week, it was all done. Within one day, it was done. But within a week, it was all done. And then they go back to their normal practice of weakness, of not taking care of criminals, meaning taking care of putting them in jails where they should be. Washington, D.C., and you all are the best people for that, because Washington, D.C. is now one of the safest cities. It was one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Now Washington, D.C., believe it or not, I'm embarrassed to say it in front of you, but Washington, D.C. went from one of the worst, most dangerous cities to, you can walk down the street, you can send your child to meet you at a location. Your child is going to be fine. We have a very, very safe city, one of the safest, and very proud of that. Memphis, by the way, is coming along fantastically. We're in Memphis right now. We had the FBI in Chicago. We're doing things. We haven't served Chicago yet. When we do, Chicago will be very quickly a very, very safe city. But if you look at what's happening in Memphis, it's great. But you got to look at Washington. People are coming up to me. People that work in the White House are saying, "Thank you, sir," and I immediately know what they're thanking me about. It's thanking. They can walk to work. They would never walk to work a year ago. They can walk into work and they feel safe and secure, and it's beautiful. And I'll tell you what, it's really an honor to add that great ballroom, Washington. It's going to be one of the great ballrooms of the world, and I think it's going to be something you're all going to be very proud of.
Mr. President, as it relates to your meeting that's coming up with President Xi, what do you hope comes out of that meeting? What deliverables come out of that?
I think we'll make a deal. I think we're going to make a deal on the rare earth is the least of it. Look, the tariffs are much more powerful than the rare earth. The rare earth is a disturbance, but there's a lot of rare earth around. I'll tell you, I've had more calls on rare earth. We've got it. Everybody's. We'll make a deal on, I think, everything. I think we're going to make a deal on soybeans and the farmers. I think we're going to make a deal on maybe even nuclear. President Putin in his call mentioned to me about nuclear, where we do a de-escalation, and I'm fine with that. I think it's good. I think it's a very appropriate thing. We have the most nuclear weapons. Russia's second. China is actually third by a long way, but they'll be even within 4 or 5 years. Too many. And we are talking about de-escalation. That's already being talked about.
Can you convince
and I think we'll probably add China into the mix.
Mr. President, can you convince President Xi to stop purchasing all of that Russian oil that's funding this war against Ukraine?
Well, I think I'll be talking to him about it. I think it's a little bit of a different talk. India, as you know, has told me they are stopping. It's a process. You can't just stop it. But by the end of the year, they'll be down to almost nothing. That's a big thing. There was almost 40% of the oil. India, they've been great. Spoke to Prime Minister Modi yesterday. They've been absolutely great. China's a little bit different. They're a little bit different relationship they have with Russia. It was never good, but because of Biden and Obama, they got forced together. They should never have been forced together, but they're a little bit forced. But they're by nature, they can't be friendly. They can't be friendly. By nature, I hope they are friendly, frankly, but they can't be. You should not have forced Russia and China together. And Biden did that, and Obama did that. They forced them together because of energy, because of oil. And so they are closer than they would normally be. I think I'll probably be talking about it. What I'll really be talking to him about is how do we end the war with Russia and Ukraine, whether it's through oil or energy or anything else. And I think he's going to be very receptive. He would now like to. I'm not sure that he did at the beginning. He would now like to see that war end.
Do you think Xi plays an important role, Mr. President? Do you think Xi plays an important role in terms of inserting himself and convincing Putin, who he speaks to regularly, to stop the war right now?
Yeah, I do. I think he can have a big influence on Putin. I think he can have a big influence on a lot of people. Look, he's a respected man. He's a very strong leader of a very big country. I think he can have a big influence, and we will certainly be talking about Russia, Ukraine.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. Liam Cosgrove with Zero Hedge. My question is actually for the Secretary General. Mr. Secretary, I don't know if you've seen this, but polling out of Ukraine shows a massive collapse in Ukrainian support for the war. A Gallup poll had it just 23%. That's less than a quarter. Zelensky came out today praising President Trump's proposal for freezing the front lines of battle as part of a ceasefire. He said that's a good compromise. So people view your coming here as, you're lobbying the U.S. government to continue its involvement in the war. You're obviously lobbying for more NATO weapons to be sent to Ukraine, but Ukrainians themselves don't want to fight the war. So how do you justify that morally?
Well, I'm lobbying only for one thing, and that is to make sure that we end this war. And I don't have to lobby the president because we totally agree on this. And this is what he has been doing from day one. Everything he could do to break the deadlock with Putin, get the dialogue going, dialoguing also with Zelensky, and getting this war done. It's crucial. The fact that the U.S. is now supplying weapons into Ukraine, paid for by allies, is extremely important. And that's now happening since 2-3 months. About $2 billion moving into Ukraine.
The war hasn't wind down. Why do you think that'll wind it down now?
What do you mean?
Do you think more weapons will wind down the war?
No, I mean, there's more to be done. So what you need, what the president said this weekend, stop where you are, so basically do a ceasefire and then have all your discussions about territory and whatever. But first stop the war. This is what you said on Friday and on Sunday.
It's a war. I mean, your question's really a fair one. It's a war that should have never started.
And
You know how I feel about it. But it's a war
ended.
that should have never started. And we're not selling any weapons to Ukraine. We're selling them to NATO.
Yeah.
Which is different from before. With Biden, he just gave $350 billion worth of weapons and cash right into Ukraine, and that was so foolish. But we sell them to NATO, and in theory, you can do what you want with them. It doesn't have to be Ukraine, but probably it is mostly.
No, what nations are doing now is buying from this program and making sure that the supplies into
Europe.
Ukraine, so Europeans and Canadians. And for example, these are interceptors for the Patriot systems, crucial to protect the cities. Today, again, a Russian attack has killed children, at least seriously wounded children in a kindergarten in Ukraine. So we need to make sure that the air defense systems are in place, and we need the U.S. systems to do that, and the Europeans are paying for that. And this is exactly the type of actions we needed, and the president is doing that, and trying everything to get this war to an end, starting with the ceasefire.
You can say
Mr.
definitively
President,
you're
do you
not
still
lobbying
believe that
more.
Putin wants to take all of Ukraine?
I always felt that way. I always felt he wanted to. When I was in my first term, I was with, I was very close to him, relatively speaking. It was harder because of the Russia hoax. But I would talk to President Putin about Ukraine, and it was the apple of his eye. I'd say it was the apple of his eye. But it would have never happened. He knew the consequences were too great. When we had a rigged election and all of a sudden I wasn't there, he said, wow. I think he looked at Afghanistan, how horribly that was handled, so stupidly. And I think that really gave him a little additional, incentive. I always felt he wanted the whole thing, not a piece of it. But I think now he's willing to negotiate a little bit further, and I think he's willing to make a deal. We'll see. We don't want him to have the whole thing.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have this big tariffs case before the Supreme Court. It's November the 5th.
Yeah.
You suggested that you might actually show up to the Supreme
Yeah,
Court
I'd
for
like
oral
to.
arguments.
I think it's one of the most important decisions we'll ever have for the Supreme Court. With tariffs, we're a strong, sound country. We're a nationally secure and internationally secure country. We're a very rich country. Without tariffs, it's a slog for this country, a big slog. I think it's one of the most important decisions in the history of the Supreme Court. And I might go there. I really believe I have an obligation to go there. We are doing so well as a country right now because of tariffs. And you have to understand, tariffs have been used against us for many years, decades. And just slowly but surely hurting our country so badly. That's why we owe $37 trillion. We owe that because other countries have taken advantage of us over many, many decades, And now we're a rich country. We're taking in money like we've never done before. Without tariffs, that would not be happening. And also, I solved, as you know, 8 wars. Of the 8, 5 of them, maybe even 6 of them, are because of tariffs. The threat of tariffs on these nations, if you want to fight, that's okay. India and Pakistan. If you want to fight, that's okay. But you're going to pay tariffs, and they're going to be very substantial. and we're in the midst of a trade deal. And they said, we don't want to do that. 2 days later, they call up and they're not going to fight anymore. They have peace. But I've done that out of 8, I would say 6 times, 5 times, 6 times. Tariffs are vital to this country. And tariffs have been used against us by China, by every other country. And all we're doing is using them to negotiate fair deals. And as you know, we made a fair deal with Japan. We made a fair deal with all of Europe, the European Union. We made a fair deal with South Korea. These are countries that were taking so much money away from us, not sustainable. And now we're taking in hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars. If this country is not allowed to have tariffs, if this country is not allowed to have the President of the United States negotiate on behalf of it with tariffs, we are put in a position where we're going to be a third world country. We can't let that happen. I think it's the most important case that we're going to have for many, many years to come. One of the most important cases we've ever had. With tariffs, we're a rich, secure country. Without tariffs, we're a laughingstock. We'll be a laughingstock. And I don't want to have anything to do with that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Brad. Keep going. Keep going.
You know. Thank you.
So, good evening. We have a plane to catch, so I cannot be too long, and you have already, I think most of you were in the Oval Office, but I can only tell you that I had a tremendously good meeting with President Trump. I mean, the leadership he is providing when it comes to NATO, the summit in The Hague, the 5%, the fact that since Eisenhower we never were able to equalize spending between what the Europeans and the Canadians are spending, what the US is spending, that at that summit we agreed on this famous 5%, including 3.5% on core defense spending, is now equalizing what the Canadians and the Europeans are paying into NATO and the collective NATO effort to what the US is doing. So that was a big foreign policy success of President Trump. Europe is stepping up also in other domains, including when it comes to buying weapons from the US to be delivered into Ukraine, very important for the war effort. And today we particularly focus on how can we end the war? What can I do, what can NATO do to support President Trump's vision of ending this war, ending the killing in Ukraine, including what we can do to make sure that Putin accepts the president's view that the two parties should stop where they are. As he said on Friday and on Sunday, I totally support him, and we will see how we can do that.
That you could do something with Spain, the only country that doesn't pay 5%.
Now with Spain, I had many talks with the president of the government, Prime Minister Sanchez. We know each other very well. Spain has committed to deliver the capability targets. They are saying we can do it on a percentage lower than 3.5. I said, you cannot, and we will pretty soon find out who is right.
Has the White House told you about specific security guarantees for Ukraine as part of the ceasefire?
Well, obviously we have discussed a lot of things, and I cannot go through all the details because a lot of that is in the confidence of that conversation. But you have heard the President say a couple of weeks ago, this was around the meeting here with European leaders after Alaska on that Monday, and even before that meeting, that he is willing for the US to participate in the security assurances, security guarantees for Ukraine. This is clearly Europe and Canada working together with other countries like Japan and Australia in this coalition of the willing, but there has been a clear commitment by the US to participate.
What's Zelensky did agree to?
Again.
What did Zelensky did agree to with NATO, like security guarantees or what he can give up to
What NATO is doing is trying collectively to sustain Ukraine in this fight. But of course we all want this fighting to end because we know that last month again, for example, the Russians lost over 20,000 people dead, not seriously wounded, dead in 1 month. They lost 1 million, the Russians. dead and seriously wounded since the war started. They lose now more in 1 month than they lost in 10 years in the war in Afghanistan in the 1980s under Brezhnev and his successor. So that is not sustainable. And also the Ukrainians, of course, are suffering a lot. Today we have seen Russian missiles hitting a kindergarten in Ukraine and seriously wounding people there. This is all extremely sad. It's got to end. And that is what the president said from day one when he came into office. I want the killing to stop. And I'm here to tell him, yes, we are up there, we want to support you, we want to make this happen.
Thank you. President Trump has indicated he believes Putin wants peace. Do you share that view? And when you're talking about what else NATO can do to help end the war, what new steps should we expect the alliance to take after this conversation?
Yes, when you look at the Russian side, they started this war. Clearly is not moving in the right direction. And when you look at this year, let's say the territory they gained in Ukraine is extremely limited. And as I said, against enormous amount of people dying and getting seriously wounded. The Russian economy is in a difficult situation. We know we have these long lines into gasoline stations all over Russia at the moment. We know that the French president and others in Europe stepped up when it comes to the shadow fleet. And of course we have seen the pressure by the American president on some European countries to stop buying oil. So all of this is having an impact. So I'm absolutely convinced that with sustained pressure we will be able to get Putin to the table to agree with a ceasefire and then other talks coming after that. And you have seen it in the last couple of weeks. Alaska happened when the American president decided to do secondary sanctions on India buying Russian oil. We have seen last week the call taking place when the president said, I'm contemplating sending Tomahawks into Ukraine, for Ukraine to be used. So this is clear evidence that we can change Putin's calculus. Yes. Well, I think it was clear from what he said today that he feels at the moment, and I'm not going into the conversation we had because that of course is confidential, but you have heard him say, I think it was yesterday when you were there I think in the Oval Office in another setting, and also tonight when I had the honor of visiting, that he feels they are not at a place yet where a meeting would be successful. So. And clearly he was stating this weekend, I want the war to end, I want a ceasefire, I want the killing to stop. So his position here, and I completely support this, is, as he said, stop where you are. So as both to the Ukrainians as well to the Russians. Final question, because I have to catch the plane. No, please run. We have to run.
President Trump implied that new nuclear arms agreements could be in discussion with Russia. What is NATO's stance position on potential nuclear policy shifts from the U.S.? Would it affect alliance?
Well, this is really up to America, to the United States. So, as you know, the nuclear umbrella is the ultimate guarantor of European and American safety. And I think the American president engaging with other countries and seeing what can you do to de-escalate any tensions when it comes to nuclear is always applaudable and commendable, but I should not comment because it's not for NATO. This is really the US in bilateral case, I understand, the Russians and China. Final question, and then I really have to go.
Are you not concerned that every time Vladimir Putin speaks to President Trump appears then to go to his position, that there is flip-flopping by the US president, and that we could be talking in a week from now and things will have gone back, he'll have gone back to the Russian camp?
Well, I don't buy that, and I don't agree with that. Right. Because here's the case: you guys live in the most powerful country in the world, but most powerful military. You have a president who, when I visited him first in Mar-a-Lago last year in November, when he still had to be inaugurated, but after he won the election, said, Mark, I want the killing to end. I want the meat grinder to stop. I want no more people lost. This is extremely close to his heart. And then, given his powerful position and his vision on this, he's the only one who can sit down with Putin and get him to change his calculus and give him a bit of bandwidth to do that. I mean, that is in his remit, and he is doing it in a way I completely support. I know I really have to go. See you next time.
At the UN, he said...
Yeah, we have to go. Thank you. Bye-bye.
At the UN, he said...